This is all about being tax efficient. So there are, when you look to invest in property, three main types of taxes that can affect you. There's income tax, there is capital gains tax, and there's inheritance tax. Now, if you've got a pen or paper to hand, I'd like you to write down two statements because I want your investing to be as tax efficient as possible. And the two statements I'd like you to write down are: never ever sell your investment properties. So never ever sell your investment properties. And the second one is, as the property goes up in value, increase my debt against it. As the property goes up in value, increase my debt against it. Now, there'll be some of you that feel incredibly nervous with that second statement I've made. You'll be thinking, what's he talking about? Increase the debt. I'm going to come on and explain why those two statements underpin being really, really, really tax efficient. And when you go and interview professional investors, we interviewed over 50 professional investors, people who made over £100,000 a year from their property investments alone, consistently, not just a one-off, consistently. Just about all of them are using this tax strategy I'm going to share with you. So we want to be tax efficient on all three, and let me explain why those two statements make you tax efficient on all three, and then where you take your profits. So first of all, imagine that you've got a property, and this is a £90,000 property, £67,500 mortgage, and if it was on interest only at 4.5%, once you take off the mortgage, the maintenance, the buildings insurance and the letting agency fee, you're left with a net income of £219 per month in this specific example. Now let's assume, by the way, you'll get a cheaper interest rate than that. You'll get about 3% or just under at the moment. But we model at 4.5 because we always model based on what the bank's 5-year fix are roughly at, because that's a great indication of what the banks are going to be charging for the next 6 or 7 years. We're not going to take a 5-year fix. We want 2-year deals, so we've got flexibility. We can move around, release money. But the 5-year fix is a great indication of what the banks think they'll be charging for the next 6 or 7 years. So if it works at that figure, we're stress testing quite nicely. So this particular property, £200 a month of profit, that's pretty nice cash flow. Okay, we will want that figure to be a minimum of £50, minimum. Now, ideally, a lot more, but minimum of 50. There's times when if you've got a lot more asset value and that's only 50, that's still a tick. But if it's 219, great, we're happy. Now, let's assume, back to the tax stuff, that you ignore what I said. So I said, as the property goes up in value, increase your debt against it. But assume you ignored that and you paid the mortgage off. You said, mortgage is a bad debt, I want to get it paid off. Now, mortgage is a bad debt on your own house. There is no better feeling than becoming debt-free on your own property. But when it's an investment property, it can be a good debt. Let me show you why. Let's assume you ignored me and you paid your mortgage off over the next 15 years. So over the next 15 years, you got to a position where your mortgage was now zero. It's paid off. You've used £67,500 of your savings, of money that you've got to pay that mortgage down. Now, the government will come along and they'll say, oh, we want to reward you, Mr. Smith, Mrs. Smith. You've used your hard-earned savings to pay this mortgage down to zero, and because of that, you're making an extra £253 of profit, net income. You're a 40% taxpayer, let's say, so in terms of tax, I'm now going to tax you, because you paid your mortgage off, I'm now going to tax you an extra £1,214 a year. Congratulations. So the person who lives next door to you and also had an investment property, hasn't paid the mortgage off, doesn't have to pay the extra tax. You've used your savings to pay the mortgage off, which you've already paid tax on to get the savings, and now you have to pay more tax because you've paid off the mortgage. It's totally tax inefficient to pay off your buy-to-lets. Now, on top of that, your property is going to be going up in value, and so are your rents. Every single year you need to put your rents up 3 to 5%. So 650 becomes 670, becomes 690, becomes 710. Now, your maintenance will have gone up a little with inflation. Let's say that's now 90 a month. But if you don't do anything else, you're now making an extra £50 a month of profit on this particular property. So what we do is we go back to the bank. We say, do you know what? Our property was worth 90,000, but it's gone up in value a bit. Please, can I release 75% of the increase? Can I release some money out of this property, a further advance, a remortgage? Bank say, yeah, you can release some money out. Your mortgage payments will go up, but you can release some money out. Here's £10,000. And your mortgage payments go up to £300 instead of £253. Now, the net effect is that the net income and the income tax you pay will stay the same. Your rents have gone up, but so have your costs. So to be income tax efficient alone, as the rents go up, you increase the debt against them. Okay, more on what you do with that mortgage release shortly. Okay, now I know that there's lots of talk and there's been a big announcement that there will be changes to the tax rules, and there's so many different people on the webinar tonight, I can't possibly cover each and every scenario. But when you become a client of ours, I want you to understand we look after you like you were our parents. So, you know, for me it's my mum, so we look after you like you're my mum. So if we need to tax plan for you, if you as a couple are earning 110,000 a year or less as a couple, those interest rate relief changes don't affect you at all. We just set up properly, they don't affect you. If you're single, less than 55,000 per annum, doesn't affect you. So if you're in those brackets, stop worrying about it, stop using it as an excuse. You know, we can send you my tax webinar where I spend an hour on the topic and give you all of the background. If you're over those thresholds, couple over 110,000, single over 55,000, we've got 10 strategies to mitigate it. We can't totally get rid of those tax changes impacting you, they do. But if you're over, then ask the team, we'll send you the tax webinar and you can see exactly how we go about mitigating that. But we will bespoke for you, we will build a plan for you that gets you the right tax structures. But if you're under that 110,000, you're going to build the majority of your property portfolio in your own name. Now, we're income tax efficient. Let's look next at capital gains tax. £100,000 property, on average, they double every 8 years in value. But let's say it takes 15. So in 15 years' time, the house you bought for 100 is worth 200. 15 years after that, it's worth 400. It's gone up in value £300,000. Now, if you sell the property, you've made a £300,000 gain, you have to pay tax on that. And if you're a 40% taxpayer, it's a 28% tax, £84,000. If you're a 20% taxpayer, it's an 18% tax, so it's a bit less, but it's still £54,000. Now, instead of selling the property, if you said, well, my house is worth 400, but I can borrow 75% of that, so that would be 300,000 against it, you'd still have £300,000 now in the bank to play with, and you would still own the property. Now, if you bought the right property to the right rules to begin with, and you put the rents up as you should do all the way through, the rents are paying for the mortgage. Now, the difference is the previous person sold the house for 400, they had to pay an £84,000 tax bill, they had to pay the estate agent for selling it, the solicitors, they probably netted out 300,000. Well, you've netted out 300,000 by getting a mortgage against it. The difference is you've still got the 100,000 equity in the property, and when the property goes up in value for the next 15 years, you, or if you're not around, your family, get that gain. So it becomes worth 800,000, you've got that 400k gain. If you've sold it, you never get that gain again. And 15 years after that, it becomes worth 1.6 million. So the person who sold it gave up on £1.2 million worth of growth just on this one singular property for you or your family. So why would you ever sell a property? Why? Because you get hit for this tax. Now, there are only 3 reasons to sell a property. It's a stress or a hassle for you. It's losing you money, or you're otherwise skint, so you need to raise money. Now, if you get yourself otherwise skint, we can't help that. But we can, by buying with the 7 C's, you'll never buy a property that's a stress or a hassle, because it always rents well, always rents easily, in a nice area, good asset growth. It's not going to be a stress or a hassle. You can go around the world for 10 years. You can be ill for 10 years. It will all be looked after. it's losing your money. It's not going to lose money because it's always going to be tenanted. It's always going to be rented out. So if you take away the reasons to need to sell, then you're back to do I want to sell. Well, you're better to die with this property. You can get mortgage finance comfortably to the age of 90 years of age, buy-to-let mortgages. And if you're planning to live past 90, which I am, you can get commercial finance that goes well into your hundreds. You just switch over to the commercial finance. So you can take these properties literally to the grave with you. When you die, if you die and this property is worth 800,000 at that point, you've made a £700,000 gain for you and your family, and you die. At that point, the capital gain gets written off. When your children inherit it, they don't inherit it at the 100,000, they inherit it at the 800,000 it now is. So you've got that £700,000 gain for free as a family. But if you choose to sell 5 years before you die, you pay tax on all that gain. Now let's come on to inheritance tax. If you didn't follow my advice, and again you've paid the mortgages off, and you've got £1 million portfolio when you die, let's assume your allowances are used up by your residential property and other stuff you've got. On that £1 million portfolio, inheritance tax is 40%. So your children will have a year to find a £400,000 bill and to pay it. Option 2, if you listen to my advice, you'd have £1 million portfolio, but it would have £750,000 worth of mortgages on it. So now you've only got £250,000 worth of equity. That's what inheritance tax is charged on. 40% of that is £100,000. So you've been income tax efficient, you've been capital gains tax efficient by not selling, and now you're inheritance tax efficient. You're still paying £100,000, it's not zero, but it's £300,000 less than it needs to be.
Hi guys, it's Aaron here. Did you enjoy this week's video? If so, there are 3 things you can do to continue your property investing journey. The first is you can click here and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I really hope you do, because then each week I can keep sending you great educational videos just like this one, so you can keep developing your property knowledge. Secondly, you can click the link here and get a free copy of my book, The Property Coach, where I teach the 9 steps to really truly successfully building a property portfolio. The third thing you can do is click here and go to my website, www.arancurry.co.uk, and there you can subscribe for free to my newsletter. And what that means is you'll get loads of free educational content in lots of different forms, and also any of our promotions or offers that we run are also there on the website and also in those e-newsletters. Again, helping you move forward with your property investing journey. So if you want to take action, just click any of these 3 boxes or all 3 and move forward to the next level. And in the meantime, invest with knowledge, invest with confidence, create financial freedom. Thank you.